You know what? I was so excited for this talk last night. I couldn't sleep. I'm just Dr. Doetzel, right? Did I say it right? Dr.
Oh,
Doetzel?
people say it all different ways. It's my husband's name. You can do whatever you want, but it rhymes with pretzel.
Oh, okay. All
Pretzel.
right. We met at the Hawaii International Conference for Education, and she's just a breath of fresh air. I'm just like, I was so excited to speak with you again. But I won this book at her talk, and I read this book, and this book is just like getting to know you. There's so many little stories, and it's just wonderful. But anyway, this book talks about it talks about having a glass as half full instead of half empty. It has a miracle minded lens, and it emphasizes an appreciative inquiry model suggested by Diana Whitney and Amanda Troston Bloom, which encourages us to examine the best of what was, what is, what could be, what should be, and what will be. Fames the shared stories. Appreciative inquiry promotes transformative dialogue and action by presenting a non-toxic, positive perspective. A heart-mind synergy are evident in the form of interaction when individuals begin to feel a sense of hope, excitement, cooperation, and ownership about the best of their past, present, and future. This paradigm shift in viewing the world requires us to rethink former ideologies that shaped reality and to formulate new ways of discovering truth. Latent truths can be unearthed when certain ideologies that separate head from heart are transcended by ways of knowing. Such an evolution in thought can result in formulating new ideas and fresh ways of living. You are just an incredible scholar practitioner. You received your doctor, well, you've been teaching at Mount Royal University since 2006. And let's see, you've received so many awards. I just can't even begin to, you received your PhD from University of Calgary. You studied intuitive medicine in Vancouver, received a professional certification from the Canadian Council of Professional Certification. You also are an awarded broadcasting and radio television. Oh, we got a lot of people coming in. And you encourage students to examine the world through different lenses, exercising altruism, promoting social justice, and learning to be a good sociologist. Your Mount Royal University blog is titled Debunking Deceptive Myths. In addition to recently published books, you have also authored 8 scholarly articles. You, in February 2020, the Calgary Herald rated one of your books, the preamble to this one, as a local bestseller. You are currently conducting research about complementary medicine and continue to teach at Mount Royal University. You have a radio show, you record CDs. Oh my gosh, you're Wonder Woman. That's what you are, Wonder Woman.
What are you talking about? That's not me.
Yes, that is you. That is you. So I just really have to ask you, and again, this book was almost like a devotional. It was just so awesome. And what caused you to write this book?
Well, I think it's really important to be able to do my best to walk the walk, talk the talk, and inspire others to examine life through the lens of an eye for the highest and best. And I can't, I'm limited in the number of people I can chat with or students. And so by writing books, it's another way to get a message out there to hopefully inspire people to turn their worlds upside down sometimes, and to remember we do create our own reality. It's socially constructed from a social scientist perspective. And many people forget that. For example, in sociology, we always teach about how it's only 10% what happens to us, and 90% is the meaning we attach to it.
Wow.
So if we are having a lot of negative thoughts, or we're attaching a meaning to what's happened to us in a very self-whipping way, it can really affect the quality of life. When I write books, or when I talk, or when I teach, I want to inspire people to be the best version of themselves, because I had a pretty rocky childhood, and went back to a reunion where people were coming and speaking to me about that, and were shocked with what I did with my life. They just remembered me as the wallflower, didn't talk to people, really bad posture. And I just had a wonderful dad who helped me to be, and well, parents, period, helped me to be the best version of myself. And somewhere in all that ruggedness, I was adopting the belief that the crap in your life, or the manure, can be
Yeah.
fertilized to make you a better you. And I want to get that message across, even to my students when they come to me. That crap can be fertilizer.
I love that. I have never heard that before, and that is so incredible. And I look at your scarf, and I just want to say happy St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yes.
Um, we're all Irish today, right?
We are, or want to be Irish, right?
Yes,
We're not
but we are
actually Irish.
we are actually, yeah, Irish. So you've had a couple of really life-changing events. Um, can you talk about them a little bit?
Yes, because again, going back to that belief system, those events that happened in my life made me a better me. For example, I was going to university, all excited to get that degree. And when I was in my master's, I was working on 3 jobs to pay the tuition.
Mhm.
And I was also taking more subjects than I should. And I can remember how I was treated that made me feel like my spirit was being broken, that I had my head in the books all the time, and I was no longer having fun. And I started to feel ill. And I continued to work, continued to come to school, and then finally made the big move of going to see a doctor. Towards the end, I couldn't see the doctor, there was no time. Towards the end of the semester, and I went to a couple of them because I was like second and third opinions. We examined life through different lenses, couldn't just
Which
go
is
to
very
one.
smart, very smart.
And then I said to my husband, after I finished the semester, let's just take off and go somewhere so that I can get out of this head and back into my heart and my body. So we took off to Newport to go to a ballroom dance. We were going to be in a Victorian type era.
Mm,
And we were we were going to live in a residence. And then one day, well, I was in the Cinderella mode because I was in grade 3, another challenge. I received the ugliest kid award, and
what?
suddenly, believe it or not, that's another one of those things, because in grade 3, I decided I better go to university because nobody's going to marry me on my looks.
Oh,
So, and then I ended up the first one married in the class. But anyway, we went down to Newport, and I'm finally going to be a Cinderella, a little tiara, the dress,
oh.
right? And my
How could
husband,
that be an award?
the kids made it up at recess. They
Oh my
drew a really ugly
gosh.
person with, I wore those thick glasses. I had a broken tooth and a really bad haircut. The kids were telling the truth. That's the problem. They didn't, they really thought it was funny. But
Mm,
my little heart was breaking, but I went home, and dad told me I had to forgive them. They didn't know what they were doing. My dad referred to Christ saying that on the cross. What a good teaching for a kid in grade 3.
mm.
But I said, I'm going to go to university. I have to, develop my brain. So suddenly I am becoming a little Cinderella. And this phone call comes, and they come down to my dorm, and they tell me I need to call the hospital back in my home city. Apparently you're very sick. And I thought, I don't feel the least bit ill, and I'm not calling them. So I waited. I went to the Cinderella ball with my husband, and
Oh,
I remember savoring the light of the moon, because I knew that I was a little bit in denial. There were certain parts of my anatomy that weren't feeling so good, but I'm looking at this beautiful moon, and I'm dancing, and I'm saying, tomorrow I will make my call. So after a wonderful night at the dance, and I did end up writing a song called Savor the Light of the Moon. I actually wrote that when I came out of the recovery after surgery. But I went and I flew back after I'd had some fun. And when I got to the doctor's office, they had a red flag on my file, which they sort of flag people when you're really ill.
Wow.
And my doctor said, we need to operate on you tomorrow to save your life. I'm still dancing. I'm pulling out my photographs. Let's talk about knife at the highest and best. I don't really have time for surgery. I'm going for a PhD, and I'm showing him all these beautiful photos, and he's basically telling me to shut up. You're going in tomorrow, and I did, and I'm still here today. And the thing was, when the orderly came to pick me up, I still had music and dance in my head, so I'm on my gurney, moving, like dancing my way to surgery.
Oh
And he
my
says,
gosh.
"What are you doing on there?" And he said, let's sing our way to surgery. So everybody wanted the same drug I had because we sang all the way to the operating room.
Oh my gosh. And what was your diagnosis when you?
I had a cellular cancer, and I was in the chronic stages, so it was moving in my body. So they did
Oh,
some surgeries, and I did a lot of research after that, how I could kind of save my own life, because they wanted to give me chemo and radiation, and I figured I wanted quality of life, not quantity. So that's what I
right.
told them. I even signed
Right.
I signed myself out of the hospital to heal in my backyard. I didn't like hospitals.
Wow. And how did that change you in any way with that diagnosis?
Yeah, it's a real a rebirthing when you're told you only have this long to live. You live as if it's the last day of your life, and you add a lot of quality in. And I partied. I did not take meds. I drank wine.
No.
So people brought me wine over, and we partied. And I remember I still had my stitches in, and a nurse was coming over the house, and I snuck out and I went down to sing at a dinner or something, and I
Oh
couldn't
my
get back
God.
up the hill. So I called a cab, got back, tucked myself into bed before the nurse came. Nobody knew who was
Oh my
ratting
God.
me, but I kept on living to the fullest. And I continued that, like with the thing when they said they still didn't know for sure, is it gonna, we've operated on you and we've done our best, but we don't know, kind of. I signed up for, like, my husband and I danced in the Nutcracker, and I launched a CD, and I started my PhD all when I was told I may not be on this planet too long. So why am I still
Wow.
here? Because what you believe and how you live, you attract it. And in sociology, they call that the Thomas theorem. What you
Okay.
believe to be true is true in its consequences. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy. My self-fulfilling prophecy was I couldn't go to school this long and work as hard as I did and just fall off this planet. So I willed my way into, I'm going to live a long time, and I'm teaching an aging course now, and I see myself living to at least be 100.
Yeah, I see you living forever. Yes, with your positivity. And didn't you have a near-death experience when you were little?
I sure did, but I didn't know that because I was too little to know. What
Okay.
happened was, I think I have a big heart, but I have small lungs. And so when I was
Oh,
a little girl, 10 years old, I was in the hospital at Christmas time, choking, and oxygen given to me and so on. I was already a radical then, not wanting to believe I was sick at Christmas time. So I told the doctor if he didn't let me go home for Christmas, I was going to find a back door in the hospital, because I was walking distance from the hospital. So he let me go home, be a good girl. And I guess I had some oxygen I put off and on, but my sister and brother knew I was going back from the hospital the next day. So they brought me a big teddy bear. And I started opening the present, and I was going, oh, it's just what I'm going to have a teddy
Hey,
bear.
Mom.
In the end, unfortunately, I started to choke. My mom, of course, was calling 911, but Dad, he started to pray while he was singing Silent Night. And I was already, as a little kid, seeing myself on the ceiling looking down, because I kept journals all the time. So I had it all
Mm.
written in a journal when I came back. So by the time they had come from the hospital to, the 911 call and putting everything on to bring me back to breathing, my dad, I remember him holding me and hitting me on the back, and I remember him singing, and I remember him praying. I remember my brother and sister praying, and mom phoning. And then I remember sort of that feeling of, here I am back. What's everybody so upset about? It's Christmas time. And
Mm.
I had to spend, after that, I was in the hospital almost a year. They thought I may have cystic fibrosis or TB or something, because my dad had TB, but here I am this many years later, still breathing. And
Wow.
that experience stretched me. I was just a little girl, but because I kept journals, then I was able to write about that stuff in some of my books. A little girl like that age doesn't know anything about near death or whatever. To me, I was having a dream that I was on the
Mm.
ceiling. So I started telling Dad, you're singing Silent Night, and Dad knew I wasn't breathing when he was singing. So later on, re-examining it, it stretched me. If you've had a spiritual enlightenment like that at a young age, you can't undo those insights you gain.
Right.
They're
Right.
there.
What caused you to start journaling?
Dad,
Wow.
my my dad was a teacher. My dad
Okay.
was a musician, and my dad was encouraging me already as a little girl to be a writer. He figured I was
Mm.
going to be a teacher. He thought I was going to be a medical doctor. Actually, he it was really beautiful because he called me doctor enough times that it was being imprinted. Parents don't realize the effect they can have on their children sometimes by planting those
Wow.
seeds. So dad was already planting those seeds because my mother was ill a lot. My mother was an adopted little girl that had a lot of baggage from being found in the street when she was a little girl.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so I kind of mothered mom, and dad really saw me as an old soul, I think, and had me already, you're gonna grow up to be this and that. And a matter of fact, my dad passed away young, but he held my hand before he crossed over, and he asked me to make some promises. And one of them was, I will do my best to be a doctor, I will sing, I will dance, I will write books, I will go to university. And I journaled all that because I promised it to dad, and he was such a strong mentor. So I think I've ticked off pretty everything I promised him.
Wow. In the very beginning of my PhD program, somebody they came in and they recommended that we journal. And I was like, is this what I'm paying good money for? I just, and then I thought, Kim, stop. If they tell you to journal, you're going to journal. And I think I'm like on my 10th journal now, right? I mean, it's just, and the older I get, when I forget things, I can go back and read in my journal, right?
Oh, those journals can be very therapeutic to us. We pick
Yeah.
up stuff in those, and with trying to operate from the highest and best, I do try and look at before I go to bed, what were my blessings today? And sometimes I have to dig because I'm mad. I'm mad about something that took place, and I have to reframe it. I have to go back to my belief about the crap and the manure and fertilizer. And it's interesting the patterns I will see, because I'll have something happen in the class or whatever upset me, and then the next day it's almost the opposite. It's almost
Manure.
like something had to happen first.
So manure is the fertilizer for the crap in your life.
Well, when you think about it, I really got one day when I opened up my door and my husband was watering the lawn and he put manure on in my beautiful backyard. I wanted to go out and reflect on it. I was so angry. And then I said, what did I say about manure? And I saw how green the grass was after. Like I sort of used that analogy that, yeah, the grass was green, but it sure stunk.
Right. Oh my gosh. I love that. Um, what advice or ideas would you have for leaders who are trying to create a better culture in their organization, or a culture of an eye for the highest and best?
Well, one thing leaders need to know is how important it is to have shared leadership and not to carry everything on their shoulders. But they also could learn by Parker Palmer's statement, we teach who we are, let your life speak. Because
Mm.
if you're going to be leading, you are beyond what you say, your actions are getting out there, and how you treat the people that you've been given the role of leadership over will affect the whole organization. For example, the Appreciative Inquiry, when you look at what is working here, and if you're going to go and confront somebody on some behavior that is not being accepted, they need to also know what they are doing right. Because by telling them what they're doing right, you're going to accentuate that. Often
Right.
being told you're doing this and this and this wrong accentuates that, and it continues
Right.
because they're carrying something just as if they've received some poison. So leaders are in very, very strong roles of mentoring and affecting the people who work with them. And if a leader is operating from their own inner knowing of self and their own joy,
Mhm.
then that will ripple. because we can see at work, I can see it in my faculty. There are days I will hide. I don't want to go into that area because there's bickering going on. There's the ego that's ruling an ego, the acronym, and edging goodness out. And
Mm.
it's, I can feel it, because that's one thing I'm too much of, that I don't, it's a blessing and curse as being an empath, where you feel like that, you walk in and you feel it before you see it. There's
Right.
something in here right now. So as I did just before we started talking, I often will smudge or clear the energy. So if a leader is going to lead, they need to clear if they're carrying baggage, because if they carry it in as a leader, it's going to ripple down.
Wow. Yeah, they need to lead by example in all areas of their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really love how you talk about power with as opposed to power over.
Yeah, we talked about it last night. Having
Yeah.
power with, you've got to share that leadership. I had a husband, a vice president of a company, and had a lot of dialogues with him because he was carrying it and carrying it. And oh, it was heavy sometimes to watch. You could almost see him bending. The other thing to operate, going back a little bit to the analogy about the crap in your life fertilizing, is operating from a belief that good can come out of anything.
Mm.
It can come out of anything. The worst, like the worst tragedies can teach us. COVID taught us a lot. I appreciate so much what I can do now that during COVID I couldn't. But there were things
Right.
I was doing during COVID that I can't do now
Right.
because I'm not living the same life.
Mm-hmm.
So good can come out of anything. And our beliefs, like there's one thing I teach in sociology, the acronym is BEACH, because I've done some mediation work. And when I did mediation, BEACH, the acronym, beliefs, expectations, assumptions, concerns, and hopes. We all have different ones. We have our own individual truths. And like it's my remembered reality that I write about. But when my sister comes along, she has a different remembered reality. And sometimes she reads my books and she gets upset with me because that's not how she remembers it. So we have a different remembered reality. And talking about like siblings, we have the same parents, but our socialization. I became a scholar. My sister became a clown. I used to tease her that she was the baby in the family, and we babied her so much, she didn't have to go prove herself. I was the
Mm.
middle one in the family that felt sometimes, okay, this is my youngest child, this is my oldest child. Where do I stand? I'm hanging in the middle,
Right.
right?
Right.
So her remembered reality is different. Her socialization is different.
Mm. Wow. That is so incredible. You when we talked the other day, you mentioned something about the looking glass and that our thoughts are not facts. Can
Yes, I
you?
tell the students almost day one. So watch what you think about your professor, because it may not be factual.
Uh,
But thoughts are not facts, but our inner dialogue lies to us so much. The looking glass in sociology is when students learn that they tend to define themselves by what they think others think about them. They
mm,
don't know, they don't check. They're tearing themselves up inside with a lie because they haven't asked the others what they think about them, or they misunderstand how they've communicated. And I found that out really good at these going back home and finding out that the people I went to high school with, they actually thought I was smart. The grade
mm.
three kids, they still thought I was an ugly grade three kid, but
Oh,
I wasn't dating in grade three.
right.
They just kindly let me know I improved a little bit. But
Mhm.
the the whole way of our inner narrative and dialogue, how do we stop that? Sometimes we have to say stop. One of the things I try and do is write a song to let it out, or
Mhm.
journal, or go for a walk, whatever, and shake it out. There's things about going where there's water and going like this, or putting your
Mhm.
hands in a plant and something and saying, take this from me, or leaning on a tree, but whatever, because when you carry that, it's toxic and it takes your joy. It takes away your joy.
Mm.
And the other thing that we talked about yesterday when we were chatting too, the way we look at the world, that my dad so kindly taught me as a young girl, is don't step on a caterpillar because it's going to become a beautiful butterfly. And don't step on and disrespect those cones under the tree because they're going to become trees. And he taught me to see rainbows, to look for them after storms. And the way I bring that into the classroom is, if I can treat a student how I think they could be or could become, I can help them in their socialization to become that, because they believe the professor believes in them. So I'm very, very careful with applying appreciative inquiry to how I mark and how I speak to them.
Mm.
And no matter how bad they may do on a test, and this is another language change, I call them learning celebrations. They don't have exams in my course.
Oh my
They
gosh.
celebrate what they learned. And some of my coworkers have adopted that. No, they celebrate what they learned. Why does it have to be so? Put down your pens. No, bring out your pens and your paper. We're having an exam right now too. Let's celebrate what you've learned the past month, or let's
Right.
celebrate what you've learned. And today or yesterday, my students were already talking about looking forward to celebrating what they learned next week, and how they left the class laughing. And the people in the hallway say, "Didn't you just have an exam?" They said, "Nope, we have learning celebrations."
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
So,
Um,
yeah, so we have
I
to remember sometimes that those kids will become butterflies if we don't step on them.
and I think you've really transformed some students, haven't you?
I hope so. I get amazing gifts that happen, and I'd like to share a few of them. But one of them was a young man I had taught went off to war. And I get this email around Christmas time saying, "I'm in town. I need to come and talk to you." And so we set up to have a meeting, but I'm thinking, oh, I don't remember which one this is. How does he look? As I look at the name, what's his history? He comes walking in, and I could tell under his arm he had a bottle of wine. Oh boy. Um, and he had a picture he had painted. And he came into my office and he talked to me about what he learned in university about altruism, giving selflessly, because they have assignments to be altruistic. He
Mm,
talked about the teaching about your remembered reality, and you create your own reality.
mhm.
And he remembered about only 10% is what happens to you, 90%. He could remember all these. But then he told me a story that really sticks in my heart. So he was off to war fighting, and he stopped, he jumped on somebody so the bullet would not hit that person. It was a female soldier,
Wow.
and she had children, apparently.
Mhm.
And he got the bullet. He even showed me where he got the bullet. And
Wow.
he said, "I didn't get killed, but I was most rewarding altruism I've ever done." And then when he gave me the bird, he had painted it. And he said, when he was painting, he was thinking of me in a sense of, well, he kind of said a bird to him sort of meant angel and
Mhm.
flying and whatever. So I
Mhm.
have that in my office as a
Mm.
gift. And then in reference to the caterpillar becoming a butterfly was the story I told you about at the conference, with a young boy comes walking into our class about 3 weeks late, sits down, he's disheveled, he smells bad, and everybody sort of moves away from him. And I managed to have eye contact and come up to him and say, "Welcome to the class. I saw your name on the list, but we haven't met you yet. And can we meet after class and sort of get you established?" And he looked at me as if he was in total shock that anybody would
Mm.
even talk to him. And so I met with him a few times. I wasn't sure where he was coming from. I thought maybe he had cocaine because he had a runny nose or something. There was white. So I was sort of thinking the worst, but trying to overlook that.
Right.
And then I met with him a few times. And one day he said to me, "Why do you care so much about me?" I said, "I care about all my students. You're one of my students." He said, "But nobody else has ever showed any care towards me." And that made me feel really sad. And he said, "I like this class, you know. I would really like to stay in this class. And can you help me catch up?" Well, still, I even had to leave my office door open because the smell was really, really hard to deal with. And I didn't know if I should very kindly let him know that he should have a shower before class. But I continued to help him. And
And
then
did you let him know that?
in the end, I very kindly said that students had a bit of an issue about it.
Mm, mm.
And then this was the beautiful part. They had a project, a social movement to make the world a better place. And the team was figuring he would not do his part. And so he comes into class, he has a haircut, he had a shower, he had an outfit that looked like jeans and school rather than torn and everything. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
I have an idea, team. This is what we're going to do tonight. And here's my phone number if you have any problems. And everybody went into shock, including me.
Wow.
He went out and he led a social movement to make the world a better place. And then when my mom passed on, and this is how beautiful students could be, I came back after burying mom, and my whole door in my office had sticky notes from students. We are here for you. And when I walked into class, I received flowers, hugs. One girl said that my makeup was smudged because I was crying, and she put false eyelashes on me after.
Oh my gosh.
And I was all smudgy, and I went home fluttering my eyelashes. But this young man I just spoke to you about, somebody told him, and he came to the administration office with a little package of healthy juices and foods and says, you have to take care of yourself. He just lost your mom.
Oh.
There
And
are so many beautiful stories.
what do you think was the difference, the catalyst for change for him?
Catalyst for change is when somebody feels cared for, especially if it might be the first time. It shifts their heart. And then they want to be the person you're treating them like they are. And I never treated him like a ragamuffin or something less. I treated him the same as the others. And I remember another statement he made, if I got treated this way years ago, I would already be finished university. Those are teachable moments. They're so powerful. And sometimes using that story about the crap when students come on a one-to-one seems to get them to reframe things, where I get invited to this day to weddings, engagements, baby baptisms, you name it, because the students carry some kind of memory of something I said or did that sticks with them.
Because it's the stories that they remember, right?
Yeah, they remember the stories more than the textbook. I've never had them come back, and I remember on page 35 what the textbook said. They'll say, that story you said in class, right? And the other story that is a very painful story to tell, but I feel because I lost my brother, I sometimes need to tell his story. And my brother and his little 15-month-old son lost their life in, it was a bit of a racist act because we are told that we have Indigenous roots. And after losing him, I always felt I needed to be a bit of a voice for him. And so I bring some of his stories into the classroom, and I tell the class that, yes, I really miss him, but I had the honor of being his sister for this period of time, and he taught me a lot. One of the beautiful things in the courtroom when the man who took his life was put on trial that I will always remember is when the Crown was profiling him, that there was no reason in this case for the man to take his life except my brother had refused to participate in something that would hurt another human being. So in a way, my brother was a hero rather than to become a part, because it turned out this man had a background of culty behavior of taking people's lives. But my brother had stood up and said, no, I will not follow you. I will not go and hurt another person. So I carry that.
Wow. One thing when I talk to, well, pretty much anybody, but especially students, is I try to use the feedback sandwich. So I start with a positive, and then I address the thing that needs to change, and then I end with a positive, right? So that it's not personal, right? Because you're never, whenever I'm addressing the issue, right? I'm not addressing the person. It's like the issue or the situation that needs to change, and that seems to work really well for me.
Yes, I think that probably works for anybody who practices it, because I don't think anybody deserves to be torn apart when they're doing the best they can. And that's something I tell in the class too, is I always think of Ruiz, how he says, be impeccable to your word, do the best you can, don't take anything personally. And so when I talk to the students about just come in, do your learning celebration, do the best you can, and tell yourself when you left, maybe you're tired, Maybe there were other reasons that you didn't do as well as you thought you should.
The 4 Agreements.
Yes, Rails 4 Agreements.
I
I
love
have
I love that book.
I keep that close by. I have the little cards actually. I have them where I have them right in front of me because I put them on my computer to remind me, especially don't take things personally and don't assume. Like
Right.
it's those little reminders. I call it, and part of the reason when you asked me about writing books, I try to build good habits of mind and heart and take wisdom, from others, because I walk on the shoulders of giants. There's been wisdom
Mhm.
passed down to me from others. And if I wouldn't have been in their presence or read about them or whatever, I wouldn't carry what I carry, because we are interdependent and we do learn from each other.
I can't remember who wrote the book, The 4 Agreements.
Ruiz, Ruiz,
Ruiz,
I think.
Ruiz.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he says, don't make assumptions, always do your best. Don't take anything personally and be impeccable to your word.
And that was a huge aha to me when I read that, because I used to, if somebody didn't say hi to me, or, the door slammed in my face instead of holding the door open for me, I used to be like, oh my gosh, what did I do to that person? What, are they mad at me or whatever? And then I just realized that it had nothing to do with me. It was just, maybe they didn't see me, right? I mean, don't take things personally, because you never know what's going on in another person's life, right?
Yeah, I sort of frame it in my class when I ask the students to help each other. You don't know somebody else's story. You don't know what's going on in their life, and let's do our best just to be kind to them.
Right.
Because we don't know the story behind their behavior. And it's something like I said, I have these cards close by because I'm really too sensitive. I get actually upset with myself at my sensitivity, because
Mm.
I will feel something that I shouldn't feel because I've self-talked myself into that emotion. I've said something to myself in my head to stir up that emotion or to take away my joy in the moment.
Right.
We don't talk to others the way we talk to ourselves.
That's true. That's
And
very true.
like if I'm tired, I get so worried on the way to school that my tiredness is going to affect. So I start my day with meditation, prayer, and exercise before I even go into the classroom to bring the spark to get rid of. And like we did just before here, smudge, get rid of that energy. Because if I carry something into that classroom, they'll feel it.
Yes, that is so true. And when I was in school, particularly my master's, they taught us to kind of squash the heart aspect of things, right? Everything is about the head,
Yeah.
right? How you think, what you analyze, right? And it kind of took it took life really to kind of switch that thinking around. Sometimes I say I'm a recovering academic, right?
You both are.
uh,
Probably some people here are recovering academics.
yes. And but then in my PhD, I really understood a lot more clearly the whole mind body connection. And I don't remember what brought that out, but I think it was appreciative inquiry. I really think that really caused me uh to understand that for the first time.
Well,
Yeah.
the research that I did on the heart was when I was actually in Hawaii, and Paul Pearsall was given a conference, and I had read his book about heart transplant patients taking on
Mm.
the memory of the donor. And before he passed on, I had an opportunity to pick up a lot of his research, and the researchers with him about having a heart brain, and that things go to the heart before the mind, and that we need to learn to have them both, because they found cells inside the heart very similar to the brain. And I always say, like on Valentine's Day, people don't give out chocolate brains, they give out chocolate hearts. And people put their hand a lot on their heart when they're talking about a major crises or
Mm-hmm.
joyful event, they don't go
Mm-hmm.
like this. We go like this when we can't get something, you know?
Right.
Start hitting, oh, where is that? Where is that? Right?
Oh,
But the heart and the attachment to love. So with the donors for the hearts, what was really interesting was what appeared to be carried over in the research were the things they were passionate about, not other things. And where I carry that on further was Alzheimer's people, because I worked in gerontology at one time, and the Alzheimer's patients remembered joyful things that appeared to be memories of their heart, not their head. A lot of
mm,
stuff was going out of their head, but this part. Now, we had an older man who had been in a wheelchair and wouldn't talk until headphones were put on to him one day with music he was passionate about. He jumped up from his chair, he started to sing, and after that, he started talking again. Because something
wow.
passionate, something, it's like it didn't stir something here, it stirred something here. And many people, like when I was studying, intuitive medicine and so on, many people get ill because of a broken heart. It's not a broken mind, it's a broken heart.
Mm.
And how do you heal from that? And so being able to learn that there is something in there, and that if we don't listen to our heart, it will yell at us. It will somehow get the message up here
Yeah.
saying, stop doing that, or this is what you should do. This is your passion. Why are you waiting to do it? And that's why if we lived life in a way of not being promised tomorrow, sometimes we can live it in a way of don't procrastinate, do it now. That's what my getting sick taught me.
You remind me of Louise Hay. You can heal your life, right? The opposite of health is disease, dis-ease, right? Do you view it that way as well?
Well, I guess she's one of the giants whose shoulders I stood on,
Yeah.
because I remember using her in my doctorate research, which was about synergizing heart, mind, and education and medicine, because I felt like doctors were forgetting when people came in to see them that often they had a heart issue. And with Louise Hay, I was reading her through my whole recovery from being diagnosed with the big C. So yes, I think she is one of those ones that has made a major change in people's thinking and belief
Yeah.
about health.
And I know she's left us, but I still get emails and things from Hay House. And I got an email this morning, and the question was, what was the question? What if miracles could happen to you? I mean,
And
every one of us are a miracle, right?
yes, and we just have to work on developing that miracle mindedness, and like Thomas theorem, attracting them to ourselves. I think about how many miracles in my life, like they're countless, but just a few of them that have a little bit of humor attached was, I was in Mexico on Christmas Eve and went to mass in a huge cathedral, and my phone fell out of my bag. And I got back to the hotel and wanted to call mom to say Merry Christmas. My phone, which is an extension of us right now.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
of course, I'm crying and I'm just wondering what I'm going to do. And I run to the front desk at the hotel to ask them, could they get a hold of that church and ask about the phone. And the woman at the front desk has my phone in her hand. And I'm thinking, did it grow legs, wings? And she says, is this your phone? And I said, yes, it is my phone, but how did it get here? She said, oh, somebody else who's staying at this hotel found it under the pew in the church and found your hotel key.
Wow.
And I thought, like, wow, it was one of those times when you go, well, first of all, it was Christmas Eve. I was at mass. I was in a church, but there are just so many miracles. And that's another one I document. I think I might have even written it in the book that you read. I think I had it at the beginning that had
Mm.
happened, but there are countless ones. Even to me, my whole health and recovery was miraculous. There's been times when, being in car accidents in Calgary, I was on my way to teach one day and a car hit me twice from behind, and my car was so close to the railroad tracks I could see the C train coming. And I just called to the creator and whatever. And when the police came, they said that my car had gone like this and then moved back far enough that, of course, I didn't get drawn in. But miracle mindedness, seeing the miracle within things that happen, we become blinded a lot of times. We miss it. We miss the
Right.
miracle.
And um how do you get yourself to a point where you're able to see those miracles better?
You develop an eye for the highest and best, right? Because what we look for, we see. What we don't
Right.
look for, we don't see. And so, in sociology, and the Thomas theorem again, what we believe to be true is true, and its consequences. We, through practice, we develop it more. Like if we got up and I'm gonna create a miracle in my life today, or I'm gonna see one. They're all around. We just miss them because we're so busy. And it saddens me some days when I can feel myself getting way too tired and down. I know that I have changed my eye from looking for the highest and best into looking for, why is this happening? Why do I have this much to mark? Why do I have this much to do? Why do the students say this? That inner narrative, right? But if we create the narrative of, okay, I'm going to look for a miracle today. I'm going to look for, you don't even have to call it a miracle. I'm just going to look for something that happens today that's very special.
Hmm. And in the book, you talk about having good habits of mind. Can you say a little bit more about that?
I believe that the good habits of mind are things like just talking about Revaz, that we in our inner narrative, when something pops up in the negative and goes to hit us, that we have a good habit of mind to override it. And I believe to have good habits in mind, it really helps to be able to synergize our heart and mind, to have them both working together. Because if we're dichotomizing ourselves, we're leaning to only one side here or the other side, if we are not acknowledging that both of them are a part of who we are. And our spirit, like that's one thing I noticed when I got in academia, was there was no talk of that. I brought it into my doctorate research, but that's a part of who we are. That's not religion. That's the awe, wonder, joy for life. That's, seeing the mountain, being by the ocean,
Right.
having those joyous moments, right? So good habits in mind would involve nurturing that part of our being, learning to commune with nature, learning to book time for us. We have our day timers, like mine is full. And
Mm-hmm.
in there, a good habit of mine would have inserted in there time for me, time to chill, whatever, or I'm going to book this in. And going back a little bit to the whole story I said about turning the crap as fertilizer, is one of the things that really helps me to get out of the head and more into the heart is dancing. But I was kicked out of phys ed class in high school because I had two left legs, or two right, I don't
Oh
remember.
my gosh.
And I've been searching for that teacher because now I've been winning awards in dance. And I started off and I did continue to have that problem. But because of my passion, determination, and I love dancing and I don't really care if I have two legs, right legs or left legs, this is giving me a good habit to dance through a rhythm out of whatever mood or what's going on. And in my aging class, I have an article that says, dancing helps you live happier and longer. And so it talks about the research done, how dancing goes beyond playing golf or crossword puzzles or swimming or whatever, in helping older adults to be healthier, happier, longer. And because I'm going down the path of becoming, older every day, and I feel when I'm doing that, I become a little child again. And if I'm having one of those days, it, by the movements and everything, it seems like it's synergizing the heart and mind with those movements.
And why do you think it's so hard in academia for for them to acknowledge the heart? Why do you think that is?
Well, let's all call it a little bit of a social conditioning. It sounds sort of hocus pocus out there. This is
Mm-hmm.
just a pump. Don't bring that in. Like, this is what I used to get when I used to present on my research. This is, the heart is just a pump. I mean, in academia, we are so much in the head. To try and bring in another aspect is like, whoa, that is, heavy. But now with people like Greg Braden out there, I always sort of snicker to myself because he is out there constantly talking about the heart and shows research of how you can scientifically show heart connections. And with Paul Pearsall, the one I spoke about that did the research on heart transplants patients, he had a little machine he hooked up to me. And I had been reading his books, and therefore I'd already grown passionate about what he was doing. He hooked me up to the machine, he shook my hand, and my heart went like this, like on the machine. And it was like, my husband's standing right there. I don't think this is very cool. This kind of looks like a crush on this man, right? But he's explaining, and I would have never thought that my heart could be picked up with what my heart was thinking, let's say, using the language thinking or feeling or whatever. So many and the other thing, just the whole thing around love and passion, it's so related to this part of us, and so many people when relationships are broken end up with a broken heart. I've never heard the language, and I used to work in helping profession, I have a broken brain, but people used to spit it out, my heart's broken.
Wow, that's so true. And how do you heal your heart?
With a lot of love from self-love, love from others, and choosing to do things you are passionate about. Because when I went to university and I was full-time in the books, and I stopped singing, I stopped dancing, I stopped playing the guitar, that's when I ended up sick. That's when I was told I had 6 months to live. Something happened to my spirit. It went somewhere else.
Wow. I loved this book. I loved every second of it. And when I met you, when I was sitting in your talk, I was like, oh my gosh, I think we think the same way, right? I mean, you are an ally and an eye for the highest and best. And all your books on Amazon
I
and
believe
Kindle.
that I believe Kindle, the one you have, right? Okay. I believe that one, well, I know it's on Kindle, and I think it's $5 or something, or you can get the hard copy, I think is 10 or 15. The other ones are people who kept them and sold them back to Amazon. Because I looked one day and I saw one of my books on there for $50, and I said, they're crazy. I never sold my book. I never sold my books for that, right?
Oh my goodness.
They I guess they have some copies hanging around, but if anybody ever wanted some copies and you sent me, these people would like, I would arrange somehow for them to get a copy of the ones that are left.
How could someone contact you?
The email address, would you be able to send my email out to people?
Yeah, I can put it, I can put it in the thing.
The email is most people call me Angel, but the Nancy Angel, NDOETZEL at M as my, T as in Tom, Royal, ROYAL.ca, mtroyal.ca. But you'll be able to put it out there, right?
Yep, I will. And I'm so glad our paths crossed. I'm just so grateful to know you and to listen to your stories about how I didn't even know that story about you winning that horrible award in 3rd grade. I had, you know what? I had somebody, Catherine says, thank you so much for this precious sharing. Coming from a French background, we learn already at school to be very critical in most situations. Could you maybe advise 1 or 2 effective activities to train and help people develop an eye for the highest and best? Oh, I love that.
Yes, I guess I would say I bring perception things in where, for example, you have a picture, there's more than one way of looking at it. Or because I teach what's called active learning, I will give them something in a team for them to create their story around, but I will tell them the lens. They have to be looking for the highest and best while they're examining it. And so it's just an example of trying to help them look for that, to see it. because whatever you're looking for, you're going to see. Just like in grade 3 with the ugliest kid,
Mhm.
the kids really felt they were telling the truth, but I have pictures to prove that they were telling the truth through their own eyes, the broken tooth, the big thick glasses. My mother cut my hair with pinking shears, I swear. It was just zigzagged all along. So again, those kids wouldn't have an idea in grade 3, but maybe if there was an exercise beforehand to see the beauty in whatever, right?
Right.
So exercises can be given, because my students have told me some of the exercises I give them helps them to look at things differently. And that would be part of what we need to do. We need to learn to look at them differently and then help them to see them differently.
The glass is half full as opposed to the glass being half empty, right?
Yes, and the thing on that is we would be deceiving ourselves if we told ourselves it was always half full. So it's, if it appears half empty to you, how can you change it to seeing it as being half full? Because life, that's the thing is, we need to understand we've got light, we've got darkness, we have love, we have hate, we have, you know, light and times of darkness, and people are not always going to be happy, because you learn to be happy from having those unhappy, struggling times. I was the saddest looking little girl when I lost my brother, when I lost my dad, and so on. But I was able to move on to the joy later after I walked through it. So there's not a message of that glass is always going to be full, half full. It's how do we bring it up there by how we define it.
Mhm. And you know, I had a aha moment. It was last year. I had a girlfriend from high school come out, and we had so much fun traveling around together. But I told her about how a guy in high school used to tease me about an aspect of my appearance, and it was very hurtful. And my girlfriend is gorgeous. I mean, she's beautiful. And she told me that somebody had made a couple of comments to her about her appearance in high school. And I was like, no way. Nobody, I just couldn't even believe that anybody could say anything bad about her appearance, right? And I was just like, oh my gosh, I carried that with me for a lot of years, and I should have just let it go, like right at that point, right? But I internalized that. And I think a lot of people, when they hear mean things or rude things, they do internalize it.
They sure do, because
Yeah.
years later I became a modeling teacher and I won an award in Toronto, and they kept calling my number and I didn't respond because I didn't think that I could ever win for anything connected with my appearance. I
Wow.
still carried the hangover from grade 3, ugliest kid. You know, I had this good makeup job and so on, but I didn't respond to
Wow.
being told. So those are scars, and scars, if you think about it, you know, if you have a bad burn or a cut, those scars still have a little mark there. You know, it's healed, but there's still a little mark there. And I do believe when something very hurtful has happened, that we have to reframe it and look at it differently. But I do believe a little scar hangs in there, and we can use that scar by flipping the meaning. We can use it for something positive. For example, empathetic understanding of other people being hurt.
There was this statement that good can come out of anything. When she was speaking,
Ah,
good can come out of anything. Now, if good can come out of anything, I am asking whether everything is good.
Well, that's a very good question, because I believe
that
that
is so wonderful.
that is a really good question. I believe it's all in the eye of the beholder and how we define things. Because again, if we can't really dichotomize and say everything's good or everything's bad, there's
Right.
usually, even in a little bit of what we consider to be good, if we looked really close at it, we'd probably see a streak of some badness in it.
Mm.
If we looked at something really bad and we changed our meaning, we could see some goodness in it. So it's so much in your meaning you attach that that's where it counts. The tragedy, the incident, or whatever is going on itself could be absolutely terrible. Like, I don't know, even like if I even go back to being given 6 months to live. That didn't appear to be too good to many people, including myself, but there was a thread in there that I kept pulling on with the meaning I attached to it at the time.
So it's 10% what happened and 90% what meaning you put on it.
That's the ideal for us, that we can try to push ourselves to attach a different meaning. That's how a sociologist has defined it. That doesn't mean that's the way everybody's going to, see things, but that's the way a sociologist was trying to get the message across of how much is dependent on whatever meaning we attach to whatever is happening to ourselves or in the world to affect us, to have some kind of joy, peace, or whatever in our life.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about that with saints and people who have chosen to put their life out there for the sake of whatever beliefs they had, and it doesn't look too good from this side.
Thank
What-
you.
You know, I what you describe is what I felt when I was in India. I mean, I saw people living in almost destitute situations, but they were so happy.
Yes.
And I was like, they just had like this smile and I was like, how can you be so happy? You don't have an Xbox or a big screen TV or, whatever. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, none of that stuff matters, right? None of that stuff really matters in the real world.
So really, we have to really challenge ourselves. What meaning are we given to our lives and things that have happened? Do we really give ourselves enough self-respect, compassion, love? Or are we allowing that inner narrative to say we're not good enough? Because my inner narrative, sometimes I really have to work on getting it out of my head, change the meaning of, what's happening.
I love that. Okay. I need to read your other book. So maybe we can do a book swap. I can send you my book and you can send me yours or something.
I will. And I think everybody should end with, when Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring. There we go.
Because we are all Irish today, right?
We are.
Oh, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for reaching out to me and asking me to do this. Thank you, everybody who took time out of your busy schedules to tune in today. We appreciate it so much.
All right. Have a great St. Patty's Day.